Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey everyone, Duncan here, your host with the Firebelly Social Show, where we interview leaders and founders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. I'm excited to have you here. This podcast is sponsored by a company I started, Firebelly Marketing, where we provide social media marketing services for mission-driven food and beverage brands. And so we're excited to talk to you about that, firebellymarketing.com. And with no further ado, I've talked to people all over the world with this podcast, but it's so exciting to talk to two people that I've actually known for probably 20 years. Is that fair? With no further ado, Jamie and Dan Fahrner, who are the founders of High and Mighty. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So exciting to have you guys here. Jamie, for some reason, I keep thinking about the time back at the Monon coffee shop where we all met, and my face had the dubious distinction of being on a stool.
Yep, sure did, where everybody sat, Duncan. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the rest of the phrase that could go with that, but that is true. Yes.
Yes. And it's so exciting because to be a part of each other's journeys. Dan is a very dynamic man who, among so many accomplishments, he's trained hundreds of C-level executives. He runs a successful digital marketing agency. And in addition to that, used to be, I guess you're always an Olympian. So he had a band called the Deadbeats, and he is a very dynamic performer. Jamie, I'm gonna let you tell your dynamic things because I have spent all my energy on Dan here.
I know, that's true. Yeah, I mean, he is pretty dynamic though. I'll just slowly move to the side. No, I don't know what I have to tell you. I feel like asking us questions is a better way to go. So I will chime in where necessary.
All right. Well, let's start with this. In your words, what did you set out to accomplish with High and Mighty, and what is it?
You go ahead and start. No, go ahead.
All right, sure. Well, let's see here. So High and Mighty, we're technically a distillery based here in Indianapolis, but we really consider ourselves more of a cocktail company. Cocktail culture has really moved from the coast now officially to Indiana and the Midwest. And so it's something that we are excited, passionate about. We're cocktail nerds, and that's kind of how we got into it, right? And honestly, when the pandemic hit, it actually kind of accelerated our planning around the business because we didn't really expect it, but everybody started drinking canned cocktails and ready-to-drink cocktails at home because it was harder to find cocktails. Obviously, you can't, bars were closed for a minute there, and then even then, people didn't necessarily feel safe going out or what have you. So anyway, all that to say, we started this as a cocktail company, and that's really what it's become. Mm-hmm. I'll let Jamie tell the story about kind of why and where this all came from. If you don't mind.
Sure. Happy to. So we have been at this for about 4 years, just kind of dreaming. We called it the big idea for probably the first year and a half. What is that? Where are we going with it? But really the idea is based around celebration. We had 4 kids in 4 years. And so if that happens, you have to find not just the big things to celebrate, but also the little things. There are a million wins in the day that kind of get passed over. And so what we want to bring to people with our cocktails and with our spirits is just this belief that everything is worthy of celebration. That's a family value of ours. And so that's what we put into our company.
I love it. Yeah. I love the celebration. And the fact that there are so many reasons in life to celebrate, and life is fleeting, and that's so inspiring. And I heard a rumor that it all started in Italy.
Oh, that's true.
That is true.
We had the grand pleasure of getting to go to Italy 10 years ago. We took our 8-month-old, it was our first kiddo, Calvin. And we were really inspired by the way that the Italians that we interacted with just grabbed a hold of life. And that was actually where I had my first Negroni, and I haven't stopped since, because if you haven't had a Negroni, you should go get the 3 things that you need for it right now. But really, it was just it was just an introduction to everybody just felt celebratory there. And we came home kind of holding on to what that meant for our family. And I will say that taking an 8-month-old across a big pond to a place where you don't speak the language could be really stressful. However, we were met with just love, and our child was passed around in pubs by people we didn't know. And there was just like this essence of joy that we really wanted to capture. And that's been a part of our family life over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. It all began in the piazza. And I think maybe just to add on, the Italian culture that we experienced, I know it's not like this everywhere, but there was just an aura of gratitude. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to our business. And, you know, it's a good reminder for us, because there are lots of reasons that we could feel pessimistic or jaded, especially over the last few years going through the pandemic, all the fear around the economic uncertainty right now. But the reality is that there are always going to be things in our life that we can find gratitude for. And so that's kind of what we're shining a light on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such a great story. I got to give a shout out to someone I think we all know, David Hoppy, the amazing David Hoppy, who perhaps makes one of the best Negronis in the world. But we can't sustain that. So we need High and Mighty for a consistent supply of drinks when David Hoppy is not running. And we have the honor of sharing some really amazing people who are also celebratory. Angela, my significant other, and the two of you are also friends with the Banners, Jeb and Jenny Banner, who are also into cocktail culture. And there's so many reasons to celebrate. So that was the origin story. So what's been happening? So you come up and you have another partner who's on the mixology side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our good friend crazily said yes to us on our porch for joining this adventure about 2 years ago. And his name is Nick Traeger. He's his background is in the cooking chef world. And so he really brings like a different sense of flavors to the things that we create. And he also is pretty much the best person to work with. He's very laid back and kind and generous with his time. And so we would not be able to do what we're doing without Nick. He's a huge piece of this puzzle.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we realized early on that we don't have the technical capabilities to, create the drinks and the spirits that we wanted to. And so couple directions you can go. Either you can learn it, try to do it all yourself, or you can partner up with somebody who does have some really unique experience. And so that's what we did. And Nick has an awesome background here locally in Indiana, but he also has opened restaurants in Michigan, worked in kitchens in California. And so anyway, he brings a very unique perspective, and we'll share a little bit of that as we get into some of the products we can highlight for you.
And so we're here with founders Dan and Jamie from High and Mighty. And listen, we have sampled the cocktails. Thank you for hooking us up. And I'm going to say that there is definitely some genetics in the product that come from the music world, or at least that's my hypothesis. And can you either confirm or deny?
Yeah, sure. I can
confirm quite the beat to them. That's true.
Yeah, I can confirm it. Well, I mean, I think the link between all of this, at least for me in my career path, has been through marketing. And so this is where, like Duncan, you and I share a lot of similarities. Obviously you've run and owned your own agency for a long time. I've been doing that for several years now. What I learned very early on in the spirits industry is that about 80% of the business is brand and marketing. And so that gave me the confidence personally to kind of jump in with 2 feet. And I think you'll see, and I'll start to show some of our products here, how that manifests. So this is our flagship and kind of our first product. It's called Lemon Shake Up. It's a canned cocktail. It's gin based. We are technically a gin distillery, so I'll show you some of our gin in a minute. But you can see, based on the overall kind of like color palette, the brand and marketing. Yes, exactly. Even the
stickers for days.
The copy. So like here on the back, we're trying to have fun with it, right? Simply the zest. So just a play on words, meant to be very fun. And what we found is that bringing the aspect of celebration from our brand into the packaging, into every aspect of marketing has really helped people kind of like grasp on and catch on to it. So all that to say, I think like the marketing aspect of this business is very important to the industry, but for us, it's kind of been like a, I don't know what you'd call it, like a pillar that we could stand on.
I also think it's been such a fun creative outlet to look at this packaging a little bit differently. We are about celebration. And so we wanted to put something on the cans and on the bottles where that's the first thing that you notice is that this is a joyful, excited brand. And we worked with some super awesome teams in the city that helped us to take this big idea and kind of distill, for lack of a better word, distill down into something that is recognizable. Last night we were at an event, and I always love to hear that people are excited about what they see when they walk up and say, this is really fun. Like that's who we want to be. And so to have Dan's marketing background along with the music, like this is just a new creative outlet, which has been really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it's thought provoking. So, we've tried the two flavors, and I'm not going to name names, but these would be people that you are aware of that were like, simply the zest.
Exactly.
There was a little bit of slice baby going on. I mean, we picked it up.
That's true. I don't even think we thought of that. That's just like so in Dan's brain. And so it came out so naturally and organically.
You're right. I did not think about that.
It just sounded good together.
and my music nerd brain, and I'm sure we give a shout out to Ken Honeywell, would say, "Shake it off." Is that like a Cars reference? Like, where did that come from? So we were just like, wow, man, we can't wait to see the rest of it because there's music DNA here. So, and maybe it's all, maybe it's like we are just like,
Nick will love that too. That's so funny.
Here's another example. So this is one of our gins. It's called Big Fuss Gin. And we actually have, Jamie and I have twins. They're 6 years old now. And their names are Art and Gus. And we have two gins. We call them our twin gins, Big Heart. And then this is Big Fuss Gin. And so you can see the packaging is pretty vibrant here. This is a dry gin. So similar to your London style dry, but we call this our savory dry gin. It has dill and celery and caraway. Very interesting and unique. But on the back is really, again, where that like fun, I guess you call it music aspect comes to life. Kind of a big deal. So like Big Fuss, like it's very tongue in cheek. We're trying to kind of have fun and not be too self-serious about it. Right. So there you go.
Now I'm going to start looking though, Duncan, for how we interweave musical references that we didn't even mean to do. Like that's right. I'm starting to read our bottles a little bit.
I mean, this is just gonna be fun to promote because Ben Shine is sitting there somewhere, like reading very closely and like going like this one. Where did the inspiration come from? Right? It's like. Anyway,
that's good.
I mean, if Ben Shine is reading any of this, I will feel like we have like accomplished something. That's a really big, not to mention a really big deal.
And let me say this: that there's a lot of product out there, and to differentiate with the actual product is exceptional. However, you've gone one step further. I mean, the product tastes really good. I mean that the brandy. With the apple is just, it's so, not only is it tasty, but it's like, it's Indiana, it's like Midwestern, it feels like fall, and yet you can drink it in March heavily.
Well, when it's 30 degrees out, you can drink it whenever.
So I guess that my question is like, what's that process look like for you? And you guys have got bottles, you've got cocktails. What role does innovation play in the process?
It's a good question. Do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that, so when we first launched the brand, we launched it with 3 different products. We had the lemon shake-up can cocktail that you just saw. We had the twin gins. You just saw one of those gin bottles. And they're like summer products, right? The lemon shake-up is very light and refreshing. We hear from people every day that it's like perfect, at the beach, on the boat, after mowing the lawn, what have you. And we got towards the end of summer last year. And by the way, we'll have to come back to this in a minute, but our distillery is actually located at the Indiana State Fair. So we're inside of the State Fair. Last year, we launched Lemon Shake Up at the fair. It was a wild ride. We were doing sampling and all kinds of events, and we even had a mascot. And I'll send you a video that you can see. We just posted a video yesterday for March Madness with our mascot like dunking on really tall people. So that was pretty fun. Anyway, so we got to the end of the fair. We were like, what now? And we kind of realized, okay, we need something for the fall and winter. So, I think that our innovation process kind of starts with, like, for us, seeing a niche or a need in our small marketplace, right? And then trying to find something that is a nostalgic angle to fill that void. So, Lemon Shake Up, we could have just created a lemonade cocktail, right? But the idea was to align it with a fair where our distillery is located. And then the fall product that we came up with is called Spiced Apple Sidekick. So you can see it here. We got this fun apple character. And the name Sidekick actually has like a triple meaning, let's just say double. First of all, it's a play on the word cider, because apple cider is the drink of fall and winter, right? And then Sidekick is actually a play on a cocktail called a sidecar, which is made with brandy. So it's kind of like a margarita, but made with brandy and lemon instead of, tequila and lime. So anyway, like the idea here was, okay, what is nostalgic about fall, right? And it's apple cider and it's like cinnamon spice. And that's what we tried to bring to the cocktail. So we started more with the feeling and less with the actual flavor profile. And then we let that feeling kind of dictate where we went with it. And then, as you said earlier, with the music reference on the back, we've got Slice, Slice, Baby. So anyway, we're trying to keep it really fun and lighthearted. But I guess that's the innovation process, is like, we want to keep it nostalgic and fun, so that as people start to see our products and taste our products, there is a feeling associated with it. And, I guess we could liken that back to music, right? People have all these memories where music plays a central role. And that's kind of what we're trying to connect the dots with, like a flavor that invokes a memory, if you will.
That's a really good answer.
Thank you.
That was a great, and maybe the other way around too, right? It's like the flavor invokes the memory, or the memory invokes the flavor. It's an amazing connection. I remember when I first came to North America, I was living the summer in Toronto after I turned 18 in the suburbs of Toronto. And I still, if I smell freshly cut grass, because that's the time I arrived, is early June, I arrived in North America, I still associate that freshly cut grass with that time of my life. And, I think it was Live to Tell, Madonna was #1, and Billy Joel had Modern Woman, and it's like that whole, it reminds me of all that stuff. And that's really, I think it's very insightful innovation, where you're starting with the feeling and then saying, how do I productize the feeling? It's really absolutely really amazing. And so what does that look like for you guys? Is it the three of you, the two of you and Nick, talking this stuff through and then going through different iterations of what it's going to taste like?
Yeah, exactly. It's been such a collaborative process between the three of us. And I feel like because we had a friendship prior to being business partners, there is like this innate trust that already exists there. And so it's been such a joy to start with that feeling and then kind of backpedal together and figure out where it is we want to start. And then I feel like all three of us are really involved in the tasting process as we move forward. Nick kind of does the heavy lifting, and then we participate as we get closer and closer to that product. And I also think we have a really beautiful community of friends and family here in Indy. And one of our values as a business is humility. We know that we can't do this without this like group that has been so kind and generous with us. And so really, as we're messing around with these flavors, we bring other people into the fold too and get their thoughts and opinions. which has made it really fun. Like it's built up some energy around it and allowed us to get outside of our 3 bubble a little bit and bring in some other ideas too. So that's been super cool.
So I got to ask this question for the digital agency part of you all and myself. In the agency world, you spend all your time, on clients, and, whether you have amazing clients or you have shit clients, you're focused on their needs. You're driven by their objectives, right? It's all about them. And it seems to me that you see, there's, I don't know what the percentage is. Maybe it's a tiny percentage of agency owners who will say, you know what, I get the value of brand and I want to have my own product. I want to do this for me, and I want my vision to drive it, as opposed to, the fucking client always telling me what to do. It's like, sorry, I did it. I did it. I mean, so is that part of it? Is like your creative process didn't want to be shackled to someone else's vision?
It's like you're coming out of Dan's brain right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that is probably where in reality this all started. I've been in the agency world for 15 years. And so, realizing like put so much energy into other people's businesses, what would it look like to put the energy into something of our own? Mm-hmm. And that was really kind of where it started. Like, okay, what could that be? We wanted to be in the spirits world in some way. And you're exactly right. And as far as like how it feels and how it works, I would say it's very exciting, but the highs are high and the lows are low, just like any other business, And so, we had an amazing year last year, which we're really grateful for, didn't expect. And then, January, February are like the dark days of the spirits world. And so it's been, real. It's been real and quiet, and so that's when you do your planning and your prep work, and that's what we've been doing. But at the same time, it's like, just like any other business, where you feel that roller coaster of emotion too.
So I know that this is completely selfish and out of left field, but man, if you guys would consider a fiery spirit for January and February that guys like me can buy and say, we're going to drink the shit out of that in the cold weather, or eggnog by High and Mighty, with this, I don't know what, I'm sure there's going to be some amazing musical inspiration, but because I feel like, man, eggnog is really big in December, and then everyone just forgets about eggnog. It's like eggnog.
Yeah, you're right.
See you later, right? Maybe you'll reemerge at Thanksgiving. But so it's interesting. I wonder if there's something there with the seasonality. But what's I know you have some things that are coming up this summer. What's on the horizon?
One of the things that has been so fun during kind of these darker times is we've been able to get connected with a lot of the beer fests around the state. And that has been a really cool venue to get connected with more people in the industry and to reach a broader audience has been really, really fun. So I feel like the joy and celebration of those events have kind of like pulled us through these darker January and February. So we're doing more of that as we move into summer, and then also some other super fun stuff.
Yeah. So before I share like kind of our next big product launch, I wanted to maybe give you an idea of like what last summer looked like for us, because it's very relevant. So as I mentioned, we launched our lemon shake up and our 2 gin products in the summer, and we really didn't know what it was going to be like going into it. We truly had no idea. Partnering with the Indiana State Fair was a real game changer for us. I will say, like, in multiple aspects of our business. First of all, we live about 4 blocks from the fair. It's based here in Indianapolis. It's kind of in the middle of the city, which is pretty unique, I think, for like a big event space like that. Anyway, they have about 1 million people through the gates for the fair, and we basically had immediate statewide access to our target audience with the lemon shake up. And so what ended up happening was people started drinking this at the fair. They started asking for it at their liquor stores, and all of a sudden we just didn't have enough product to keep up with the demand that was out there. And we, like as Jamie shared, our one of our values is humility. It was a really humbling experience. We're super grateful for it. It's like one of those things that like, it's the best case scenario where you like literally can't keep up, make enough to keep up with demand. And so all that to say, we had an awesome year. We're grateful for that. As Jamie mentioned, there's a ton of beer events or beer fests, beverage fests that we're doing across the state. And then, there's all kinds of other stuff that we probably it's too early to share much about. But, like any business, we have all kinds of ideas cooking.
Well, what's really interesting, and I know you don't talk about this, but we were, as I told you, when we were, before the podcast started recording, there were a few of us here on where we record our podcast on Sunday night, and we ended up digging into your product. And I heard this like, oh my God, it's good and it's gluten-free, right? And it's interesting to me that you have this built-in kind of market when you pair up with people in the beer world, because, well, there's going to be people that go to a beer event that don't want to drink beer. And that's a perfect, we were talking to Andrea and Aaron from Ash and Elm about this. It's like, hey, we didn't necessarily plan to have that audience, but hell, it doesn't hurt to have the audience. It's like, people that don't want to drink beer, or they maybe are looking for a beer that's a beer-like experience that's more maybe even wine-ish, and the cider is there. It's like, that seems like a phenomenal idea. It's like, but at the same time, do you tell people we're gluten-free?
Yeah, I don't feel like we promote ourselves as a gluten-free company, but both gin and these cocktails are gluten-free. And so I think that it just opens up the opportunity for folks to try something that maybe they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And so I wouldn't say that we really promote it or put it out there, but it's definitely a part of us.
Yeah. And people do ask about it all the time, especially like I get probably at least 1 to 2 Instagram messages a week. Like, hey, are these gluten-free? Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And you're right about the beer events. We found that when we're kind of like the alternative option, much like Ash and Elm Cider, who, has been an inspiration to us.
Big time.
When we are the alternative, people seem to really, kind of go nuts for it, which we're grateful for, It's kind of like you can only try so many IPAs before your palate starts to, glaze over, and there we are to save the day.
I also think that it was really important for us to create a cocktail in a can that had a low ABV too, because I think a lot of the things out there are so high ABV that you have one and you're like, that is a full cocktail. That's too much for me. And so I think being in the 6-7% range, we kind of fit in with the beers too, which helps you to feel like you can have both things and it doesn't feel like too much in one experience.
That's so true. And so let me ask this question. It's amazing and inspiring that you two, together, married and kids, and then you're also working together. That is such an inspiration. I'm wondering when it comes to founder life, right? It's like, you're in such a unique position because you have a vision and you got to work towards a vision. And yet we also know the part that people don't want to talk about, or maybe they want to talk about, but they never talk about, is that founder life is not easy, right? It's not easy because, you don't have to be shackled to someone else's vision, but now you're supporting your own vision, and there's capital expenditures and partnerships and operating expenses, and there's all this stuff, right? What do you guys do to keep the celebration alive, I guess, since, it's all about celebrating? How do you remember to do that?
I appreciate that question. I think it's really important to consider that it's not like, sometimes I feel like Instagram tells a story that isn't always a full story. And so our Instagram is covered with joy and celebration, and it's so exciting. And then we're doing this work from our house. I'm downstairs, Dan is upstairs, and it's real. But I also think we have a couple of things in our corner that have really helped. Number one, Dan started his own business 6 years ago. And so we've kind of already had a little bit of practice in that realm. And I'm involved in a small capacity. So we kind of had a little bit of practice there. But then we also have the gift that my mom lives with us. When we had our twins, my dad had passed away a year before that. And she was kind of like not sure what she was going to do. We found out we were having twins and she moved down that summer. And I think having a third adult in our life really, really feels like a privilege to us, because it gives us the ability to step away from our family, to step away from our business, and to be able to go on dates and to be able to go away for the weekend. We really are lucky in how our life is set up. And we choose to make sure that we're paying attention to each other, not as business partners and not as co-parents, but like we started dating and we really like each other. So we want to keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right that founder life is not easy. And I think that we came into this wanting to work together just because we do love each other. And it's true. Finding the balance is not like simple, right? And especially I think one of the things that we've realized is like, in a business like this where there are lots of off-hour needs. Like, for instance, last night we were doing sampling at an event from 5 until 10, and we didn't get home until 10:30. And so like having the balance is going to be the trickiest and most crucial part. And so like part of that is not biting off more than we can chew, which I wouldn't say that like we're perfect at yet by any means. The other part is like having the support. Jamie's mom's a good example. We rely on a lot from our community for sure. Having our kids go over to, a friend's house in the morning so we can take one of them to the, pediatrician or whatever. So like just not, like being humble enough to ask for help is probably like the biggest thing that I think we've realized and learned is necessary.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting what a strong role love and nostalgia and music play in all of this. It's interesting. I mean, listen, Dan, you think you got gray hairs, but I guess for me, I will always have a small visual of you on a speaker at the patio belting out a song back in the day. I'm sorry, I had to bring that in there.
That's good. No, that's good. It feels like 2 lifetimes ago now, Duncan, but like I miss it,
Well, let me ask you this. So I want to encourage people that are listening or have seen this on a social media platform and are listening to try it out. And it's drinkhighandmighty.com, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And are those the social handles too?
Yes, at Drink High and Mighty is our Instagram. I think Twitter is Drink High Mighty. But anyway, yes, that's the easiest way to find us.
Drink High Mighty.
Duncan, I have a really quick story.
Yes.
Dan brought up Twitter. You're the first person I ever knew who did Twitter. Like, this has to be 20 years ago now. I walked out of Monon and you're like, I found this new app. And you can tell people things on this app. And it was like literally the first week of Twitter. You're like, it's so cool. It's different than all of the other apps, but I don't really understand it yet, but I think it's going to be a big deal. And you were right. So people can follow us on Twitter too now.
And you were like, hang on, sorry, I need to check it at Foursquare real quick.
I'm so busted. Oh my gosh. And the funny thing is, I was just telling someone.
You're so excited.
I kind of lost my personal love for Twitter, and I was telling someone yesterday, I'm like, will you be my Twitter buddy? And she said to me, you started on Twitter like when almost no one was on Twitter. I'm like, I know, but so thank you. And I remember oh my gosh, I remember driving.
Like the influencer, Duncan.
Driving in the car when Angela was about to give birth to Enzo, and she looked over at me because the light had turned green and I had not moved the car yet. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm checking into Foursquare." And she goes, "Get to the hospital now!"
You were the mayor of the hospital.
So, yeah,
That's much.
And wherever Philippe Roy is, I don't know if you remember Philippe from the coffee shop we used to all go to.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
He always had his pinky up with his espressos.
Yes.
Yeah,
and,
it's very sweet.
wherever Felipe is, Felipe, Dan, and Jimmy made a beverage company. Put. I'm going to get some beverages. So, I mean, yeah, those, thank you for the memories. That's amazing. So, yeah, everyone, we've just been having a good time here talking, and grithighandmighty.com, and reach out to Dan and Jamie. Let's support them. They're doing a great job. And this episode was brought to you by Firebelly Marketing, where we focus on mission-driven food and beverage brands. Firebellymarketing.com. You guys, it's been so fun. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for listening. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.